Okay, start or we wait? Yes. Time is okay, all right. Then we will start from the page number 2 on the daily meditation practice. We just say one recitation in Tibetan, the refuge. Then we will follow that by the one in English here. Sangye Chetan Zoye Chonam Ba Janjo Bardo Da Kyazo Je Da Ye Chushe Gibe Sonam Ge Chola Benje Sangye Choba Sho Sangye Chena Zoye Chonam La Janjo Bardo Da Ne Kyazo Je Da Ye Jinso Gibe Sonam Jola Benjire Sang Joba Shu Sangye Chena Tsoye Chena La Jubardo Dani Gyazoji Dagi Jinso Yebe Sonami Jola Benjire Sangye Joba Shu. The preliminary prayers. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel the perverted views. To you, the Gautama Buddha, I pay homage. Extract from the Mula Madhyamika Karika. In dependent origination, there is no ceasing, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separatedness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught peace, which is free of elaborations. Extract from the Abhisamaya Lankara. I prostrate to the mothers of Buddhas and of the hearers and Bodhisattvas, who, through the knowledge of all, leads hearers seeking pacification to complete peace, who, through the knowledge of paths, causes those helping, migrators to achieve the aim of the world, and though possession of omniscience, the subduer set forth the varieties having all aspects. Then to the Parmana Samujja, the one who has transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sugata and protector, to you I make prostrations. Then the Brahmana Bhaktika, the one who has eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and the profound, who eternally shines forth the forever noble light rays. To you, the Buddha, I make prostrations. Ye Dharma, Hetu, Prabhava, Hetu, De, Kantata, Yava, De, Kansayo, Nirodha, Evamvati, Mahashamana, Soha, Ye Dharma, Hetu, Prabhava, Hetu, De, Kantata, Yava, De, Kansayo, Nirodha, Evamvati, Mahashamana, Soha, Ye Dharma, Hetu, Prabhava, Hetu, Tashantata, Yava, De, Shamuchayo, Nirodha, Evamvati, Mahashamana, Soha. The meaning? All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of the causes as well is taught by the great seer. The refuge we have done. With now to the words to generate Bodhicitta, page number 5. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge with the triple gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold a precious Buddhahood in my heart. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the Supreme Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase forevermore. I dedicate the merits thus gathered towards the realization of the deeds and the prayers of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times, and to the upholding of the Dharma of teaching and realization. May I, in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle and accomplish all the stages of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the two stages. Yeah. Do you have a mandala? No. Which page is it? Maybe I'll just read it. Hello, good evening. Yeah, good evening. So this is my formal teaching, first formal teaching here. So for that, thank you all of you for coming. So I feel honored and very fortunate to be sharing the Dharma here today with you. So my plan is to share a little bit background on Buddha Dharma, for which we will discuss a little bit about the Four Noble Truths, of course. Then Bodhicitta, which is the essence of Dharma practice. Then we will, if time allows, we will talk about the medicine Buddha practice. That's for today. Maybe for tomorrow we will do some concentrated meditations, and then some other visualizing kind of meditation, like for the purification, such as Bodhisattva, etc. For tonight, today we will try to talk about Buddha Dharma. Yeah. So the term Dharma, so I know you are familiar with the word anyways, but just for the sake of the teaching, so the word Dharma is a Sanskrit word, so it means to hold, to hold basically, and to hold rightfully, to uphold. So these are the meanings. And so most of the time when we say we practice the Dharma, it is talking about holding yourself upright. So basically, in our everyday conversation we say standing tall. Basically, so this is what Dharma means in a very very easy to understand way. To uphold. So basically to uphold what is right. So in many teachings, many scriptures, the Dharma is translated as righteousness. So therefore, what is right, to speak what is right, etc. So that's where you have the so-called Eight Noble Eightfold Path, etc. Most of the time when His Holiness usually talks, His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about Dharma, he says Dharma is to transform. Because the word in Tibetan we use Chö. So the word Chö actually has no connotation, anything whatsoever to do with to hold. Rather it has the connotation of transformation or change. Because when the Lhotsavas, the translators, when they translated the word Dharma into Tibetan, they took the accent. What's the okay? Okay. Okay, it's too close. Okay. So they translated it as Chö, which means to transform. Means to, anyway, I think Mike is saying cut the crap, just go to the point. Don't tell stories, tell the essential things. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Anyway, so transformation is the word His Holiness chooses when he talks about Dharma, and that is what we are after. So transformation, what to transform? What we are transforming? Put it mildly, we are transforming always. We are, because transformation is change, and we are changing since birth till now, and then from now till the end, we will be changing. There has been change, has been constant, So change, we will keep changing all the time. So there's that is the so why do we need to transform? Why do we need to transform? So the difference between change and transformation is change is something that takes place out of control, takes on its own accord. Transformation is.
Try this one.
Yes. It's better. I don't think, I'll just leave it for now. If my hand is X, then I will put it there. So, it's good? Mic good now?
Yes.
Good, yeah. So where am I? Yeah. So transformation. So transformation is something that you actively engage in, try to change something. So it's not a change as in a ordinary, something that happens out of control, but something that you actively engage in to make it happen. So that is transformation. And what we try to transform is our mental attitude, the mindset. And what kind of mindset? The ordinary mindset that we have is we have all the, what we call the negative mindset, the afflictive emotions, the angers, the jealousy, the ego, the attachment, the craving, all the negative aspect of the mind is there. So
the idea is to transform the mind. That is actually to familiarize our mind, to habituate the mind into more positive aspect of the mind. The mind itself is considered neutral. It is clear and luminescent. That is the nature of the mind. Meaning, whatever you shed the light upon, that thing will come to light. That thing, whatever you shine the spotlight on, that thing will come to light. If you shed the light on something dirty, that dirty thing will come up. If you shed the light on something clean, neat, beautiful, that thing will come out. That thing will materialize. That thing will materialize. So the idea is, and then in many texts, the mind is likened, or mind and awareness are put on the same on the same level. That mind is synonymous with awareness. Not necessarily so, but in any case, this is a very it's a simple way to understand mind, as awareness. Anyway, so the negative aspect of the mind which we have, and the positive aspect of the mind which also we also have that. So the idea is to habituate ourselves with the positive aspect, positive side, such as appreciation, rejoice, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, all these things. And so therefore we can that is how we transform the mind. That is the idea. To habituate ourselves with the positive aspect of the mind, so that we can transform our mind for the better, for the more luminous, for the more clarity, etc. So why do we need to do that, right? And then the answer is very simple, because it is the mind which leads us either to darkness or to light. For example, we are all here because we all decided to be here, and the decision is made by the mind, right? So, so the mind decides, and then the body and the other, the physical aspect of yourself follows it. So the mind is the one who decides everything. So therefore, mind is all likened to a chariot, or a horse in a carriage. The horses lead the carriage to wherever it has to go. So therefore, our mind, by making the wrong decision or being influenced by negative aspects, negative habits, and negative things, of course, we tend to make mistakes. We tend to end up doing the things that we despise. We don't want to, but we kept doing that because our mind knowingly or unknowingly makes the decision, consciously or subconsciously makes the decision to repeat that. And most of the time it is the easier thing to do, so we just do it. And I think, I forgot who said that, the relatively thinker, I think maybe, what is his name? Krishnamurti. I think it's Krishnamurti. I'm not sure. So he said it's thinking is so hard these days. It's more difficult to think. So that's why we judge. So we make decisions randomly, or we tend to, if you look at our lives, we tend to make a lot of, we tend to make a lot of planning and all these things. But when it comes to make a decision, we usually listen to the heart. We do it. We do what we do all the time. So we make decisions intuitively, not intellectually. So the thing is, so therefore, what we are used to, what our mind is used to, more familiar to the most, when we have to make a decision, whenever we have to make a decision, we tend to take decisions that way. So therefore, habituating our mind to the positive aspect, positive mental aspect, actually helps us to help us when we have to make a decision. When I say decision, I make any movement that we make actually as decision. We are not talking about big decisions. Yeah. When we respond to someone, that is also a decision. We decide to respond to someone, then we respond, right? So the so-called reactionary things, when we react to someone, we react in a way that we are used to. So if we habituate ourselves to more positive aspect of the mind, then we will also react positively. If we habituate ourselves in a more negative way, then our reaction will also be negative. So for reaction, usually it happens it's a knee-jerk sort of action. It just happens rapidly, randomly. So we say that it happens randomly, but that randomness also has a cause behind, and that cause is the familiarization. So the way you familiarize it with or way, that actually affects how the reaction also takes place. For someone who has been, who lives in a surrounding, who lives in an environment that is very warm and caring and loving, then usually, even in a negative situation, that reaction is usually positive. But if someone has to have every day face difficulty, has to fight for their survival every day, then even for a mild interaction, the reaction for whatever encounter that they may have will at least to the onlooker, it would seem rash. Because they always live under the threat. So when even we have seen that, like I don't know, I have never seen that in Singapore, but like if you go to like third world countries, like India, I don't know, India is third world country now or not, now developing, right? Yeah. Anyway, so like there are many third world aspects in India that we can say for sure. So anyway, there's a lot of stray dogs, and the stray dogs are common mongrels, right? So they get beaten up all the time, and they were treated very badly in general. So when we see a stray dog and we try to, when we go to approach them to give some food or whatever, when we try to give them food, they actually run away because they think they're gonna hit or beat them. We're gonna beat them, and then we have to actually place the food there and just there. And after a few days, they would come closer. They would not run away. They would eat. They would dare to eat in front of us or near us. But then we try to get close with them and we try to touch them. Then they run away because they have never been touched affectionately. So there's always been like that. So this is just an example with an animal, but it does happen with human beings too. Someone who has been treated, maltreated or treated badly, lived in such a surrounding or environment. Usually, when they face, when they encounter even a peaceful or a warm interaction, they would actually interpret that probably as a threat, because maybe that person is trying to trap me, this and that, right? So it depends very much on the upbringing. So just like a human being or a person themselves, you can also do upbringing. You can also have proper and improper upbringing of the mind. Normally we call that the cultivation of the mind, right? So cultivation of the mind, or the proper upbringing of the mind. So That is what we do with when we say familiarizing the mind in a positive way or with positive attributes. So, and by doing so, we will be able to escape, or we will be able to go beyond the everyday trappings of the sufferings that we go, the misery of everyday life. The thing is, His Holiness always say that we already born, arrive in this world. There is no escape out of this world until, of course, we die. And even then we die, there's no guarantee that we will be free from all suffering. If you go like follow the Buddhist way of thinking, then usually Buddhism, because of the things that you have done, it's not very highly likely that you could always go to heavenly realm because of the actions that you have taken. So you most likely could go to a worse situation from here. And if that happens, then the more suffering ensues and so on and so forth. Anyway, the point is, you already taken birth in this world, and you actually have to live in this world until at the end of your life. So as long as you are staying in this world, make sure that you live in this world in a meaningful and a happy, in a meaningful way. So you can, whether you call it happy life or not. So happy does not necessarily mean like you are laughing at all times or smiling all the time. That is not happiness necessarily mean. Happiness basically means in Tibetan dewa, in Sanskrit sukha, or sukha, whatever. That means to be content, to be content. That is what it is. So to have to live your life contently, without any discontent. So for that, you will certainly go through suffering. That is the result. That is the consequence or the result of your past life karma. There is no escape to that. But if you could train yourself to think, train your mind to sort of strengthen your mind in a certain way, then actually those pains that you have to endure anyway can seem less burdensome. That is possible. For example, when one good example is when we swim in the pool, we enjoy. That's fun. We in the beach, whatever, we fun. But if there's a storm and then we are actually left in a pool of water, then we start to get scared. Actually, it's not the water that you are scared of. The pool water and the storm water both are same. But when the pool water is coming, you are actually fearing of the consequences. The storm is gonna take my home, this and that. So that's why you are scared. When you are in the pool, you're actually enjoying because there's nothing to be worried about. So it's not the actual thing that is scaring you, that is threatening your joyfulness, that is threatening your happiness or life, whatever. It's actually the consequence of the ensuing consequence of that experience which you are scared of, which you are dreading. So like that in life too, you will face many hardships, health-wise, financial-wise, relationship-wise, in many cases. So certain things, when we are able to change, or when we are able to strengthen our mind to think in a certain way, then actually whatever negativity that we go through can actually become a booster, or maybe a stepping stone for us to go beyond that. So, the popular saying, whatever doesn't kill you actually makes you stronger. So actually it's true, because when you go through a certain hardship and hurdle, and that thing doesn't boggle you down. That thing doesn't kill you, or that thing doesn't take you down. And if you are able to topple that hurdle, then actually you become braver, you become stronger, you become wiser, all that. So all the hardships that you have, we endure in our life actually makes us much more. We say there's one line attributed to His Holiness, but I don't know whether he actually said that or not. They say, like, when you go through a problem or a suffering or pain, when you go through a problem, never forget the lesson, or something that's attributed to His Holiness. I don't know if he actually said that or not, but nowadays you can see quotes like that. So when you go through the pain, but don't forget the lesson that pain teaches you, that's attributed to His Holiness. I don't know if he actually said that or not, but anyway, so that is actually true. That is actually true. The hardships that we go through actually makes, for example, if we train ourselves to think in a proper way, then actually all the hardships that we have been through, we can we can think in retrospect, and then, oh, this I've been through this and this and this, and now I no longer have to go through this and this and that, and then you can actually appreciate the better things, better tidings of life. But if you don't train yourself in a certain way, don't train your mind to think in a certain way, basically if you fail to harness the positive aspect of the mind, then whatever negative things that you have endured in your past, I'm not talking in past lives, in the past, in this life, right? Whatever darkness that you have been through in this life actually makes you more and more remorseful, makes you really dark, actually. That's how you become, you hold on to that, and that makes you very dark, that makes you very closed. Basically, if you train yourself to harness the power of the positive aspect of the mind, you can actually open yourself up. If you do the opposite, or if you just let it be, then all the darkness that you have been through will actually make your mind narrower, your heart closed, and then you succumb to the past, the pain of the past, which you have already endured in the past, and now you're enduring it through memory. You're living that nightmare over and over again. But if you train yourself in a proper way, then you can actually learn to appreciate the passing away of that darkness, that negativity, the pain that you have been through. So therefore, this will help us. So that's the reason we are doing Dharma practice. So Dharma practice is about transforming the mind. By transforming our mind, the two benefits. In the current life, we will have to endure whatever pain that we have accumulated in our past negative karma. We have to endure those pain. But those pain will be more bearable, if you like, for a lack of a better word. It will be less, the suffering will be less, the pain will be there, the suffering will be less in this lifetime. In next lifetimes, by changing our attitude, the mental attitude, the mindsets, from the negative to the positive, we will actually stop these negative minds, and the result of those negative mindset, which is the negative action, we can actually stop them. And when we stop the negative action, if we stop the negative action in this lifetime, then we would not have to endure the consequence of those negative action. So a lot of time when we go through some certain suffering, pain, whatever kind of pain, we usually say it's karma, right? Actually, the suffering that you are going through, the pain that you are going through, that's not the karma. The karma is something that happened in the past. So the pain that you are going through is the consequence, the effect of that cause. So in Buddhism, law of causality, cause and effect, cause and effect. So karma is the cause and effect is the pain or the joy. Whatever, whether you have, if it's a positive karma, then you have joy. If a negative karma, then you have pain. So this thing is known as law of causality. And the law of causality is the main thing in, so we're going to talk about the Four Noble Truths. So Four Noble Truths is basically based on the law of causality. So the Four Noble Truths is the first teaching that Buddha gave, and so he opened up by saying that there is the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause for the suffering, and the cessation of the suffering, and the path to end the suffering. So that's the Four Noble Truths. And so these things, the cause and the cause to suffer, the suffering and its cause, the end and its cause. So basically, you keep hearing the cause and effect 2 times. A set of positive cause and effect and a set of negative cause and effect. So the first thing he said was suffering. That is the negative thing. None of us want suffering. And then suffering and its cause. Then he said nirvana, which is the end of suffering, and then its cause, which is the path. So the concept of Four Noble Truths lies very much within the concept of law of causality. So law of causality means it's very simple, very, very simple. Actually, if you go to the text where the text of dependent origination, it's very simple. It says the first line of the law of the dependent origination text is, because of this, that. Because of this, that comes. So very simple wording. And maybe, if you go to like the 12 links of dependent origination on the ultimate reality, of course they can go a little bit in depth, but in general, dependent origination, law of causality means dependent arising. So because of this, that. Very simple. So this means, so whatever comes first, then the similar, whatever cause comes, a similar effect will follow. So in our simple term, we used to say from a mango tree, only mangoes will pop. From a mango tree, there will be no apples. From an apple tree, there will be no oranges. And if you mix the two, then there will be a fruit that has a hybrid nature. So in this case, so for that reason, Buddha said there is suffering among all of us, and that's why Siddhartha Gautama, Prince Siddhartha, that's why he was really stressed out about the whole thing, and then that's why he escaped the palace. He went seeking for an end to the stress, to the pain, to the samsaric way of life. So he could see suffering everywhere, even though he was enclosed within the palace confines. He could still feel some sort of pain, some sort of, you can call it boredom, you can call it whatever, but still he is hungry, he's craving, he wants an answer, he wants to come out. That is basically, he is not happy with whatever there is there, with everything around him, good food, beautiful girls, riches, everything, but still not content. Something, because all of this actually kind of seemed meaningless. So in order to find something meaningful, he searched out. And then when he ventured out, even though his father protested so many times, and then later he managed to go out 4 times. The first time he saw someone sick, next time he saw someone dying, another time he saw someone kind of old, yeah, and then one time he saw someone doing like a sannyasi, like a monk would sort like that, and then that's how he come to seek the life of a solitary practitioner, whether you call it a monk or not. So in the palace, with everything so proper and perfect, he's suffering. When he came out of the palace, he saw everyone else suffering. So basically, he saw that suffering is the reality of the world that we live in. So for that reason, the first words that he spoke when he was asked to give the Dharma teaching, he said, suffering is the truth. So there's a big reason behind it called the truth of suffering, the truth of suffering. Huh? So why it's called truth of suffering? Why don't just say suffering? Why you say it's truth? Why you say truth? Because truth is something that we have to accept no matter what. Whether we like it or we don't like it, we have to accept. Accept means acknowledge. So what Buddha is saying is the suffering is true. Normally we say truth of suffering as if it is an objective thing out there, but it's actually have to take it in a more personal form. Instead of saying the suffering, truth of suffering, actually we have to understand it as suffering is true. So when you say suffering is true, we actually personalize it. We actually own it up. So we acknowledge that. So first of all, the important thing is to acknowledge that there is suffering, not there is suffering out there, but there is suffering, I am suffering. So we have to acknowledge that first. A lot of time we fail to do that, especially if you are brought up in a, if you had an easy life, easy living, then you tend to forget that your life is suffering. Of course, there's a lot of things to complain about, but those complaints come from outside. Because he's wrong, she's wrong, this incident, that incident, that's why I am suffering. Not because suffering is here. Because I didn't do anything wrong. He, she, them, they, whatever, right? They are the reason what makes me suffer. So there's always someone else to blame, So when you blame it on someone else, something else, somewhere else, you are not acknowledging the fact that suffering is true. You're not acknowledging that. You're not saying suffering is here. You're saying they make me suffer, right? So there's a there's a very famous religion, very famous among the wealthy in America. Not gonna name them, but so what they say is you can actually, go to a certain, after training and everything, you can get to a certain level where there is no suffering at all, okay? And then, so what happened was they met, one of the monks, they met a certain person who practiced that. And he said he reached a very high level of that. So basically he's on the, in Buddhist term, it would be like a Buddha. So he said he's like on that level. He's not a Buddhist, but he's practicing that religion. So he said he is the same level as a Buddha, and he has no suffering, this and that. But he actually comes to talk with the monk. That monk is a senior to me, but is a good friend of mine. So he come to talk to the monk, and tells him about his, the wife problem, this problem, whatever, right? Then he asked him one day, like he has so many problems actually. Then the monk asked him, you are a Buddha, right? Not a Buddha, but there's a term there. So you are reached already the Buddhahood state, like, so why are you suffering like that? Why do you have to suffer? So he actually said that on my own part, I have no suffering. All the suffering that I would have to endure on my part is actually purified. There's no suffering. But I am enduring the suffering of others, which were inflicted upon me. So that is a lot of the time, even among Buddhists, we do something similar. We tend to, even though my point is, we try to blame it on others all the time. Yes, there is, it's not. There are many times when others are at fault. They judge you wrongly, treat you badly, mistreat you, etc. So many times happen. But at the same time, you have to. There's a space here. You can come up here. Yeah. There are many space here. Yeah. So then, Jamala, you want to come? You have come here. Come on. Yeah. Then yeah. Okay. Anyway, so this is just my referral, okay? So instead of saying the truth of suffering, say suffering is true. Yeah. The cause for suffering is also real. Yeah, that makes sense. You are personalizing it, You make it personal. You make it related to you, relatable, connected to you. It's not out there, it's in here. Suffering is true, real. I am suffering. So if we can actually, if we were to expand, then actually this actually goes with the refuge teaching. When we take the refuge, we take refuge in the Triple Gem. So when we take the refuge to the Triple Gem, we have the there is something called the Four Attitudes. Four attitudes. So to see the Buddha, the attitude to see the Buddha as a teacher, or so there's an analogical way to understand this. So this is to see the Buddha as a doctor, a physician, the Dharma as medicine, the Sangha as nurses, and myself as a patient. So for a lot of us, it's very difficult to see ourselves as a patient, to accept the fact that I am sick. Yeah, it's very difficult. We have seen that during COVID. People are very everywhere. Among spiritual people too. Very difficult to acknowledge the fact that I am COVID positive. Yeah, because how can I be sick? I try to be so careful, this and that. Yeah, as tragic as it is, and a lot of people suffer, die, all that. But at the same time, we have seen the best and worst of humanity during COVID times. Fortunately, good thing is that we've seen the best part mostly, but then we have seen the worst part as well. That is, we don't acknowledge the fact that we are sick, and then we mingle with people who are not sick. I don't know how in the situation here, but it did happen in many third world countries. I'm not going to name where. So that people actually who did not do proper vaccination, or people who, firstly, there was no vaccination, later vaccination came, and people don't take vaccination, then mingle with people who already did. Anyway, big debate about the vaccination anyways, right? So I'm not going to go deep into that. But what happened was people are very hesitant, to acknowledge the fact that they are sick. And then they just, anyway. So not to accept the fact that I'm sick is same as saying not to accept the fact that I'm suffering. So basically you are saying the truth of suffering, like as if it's a subject in a book. You're not saying suffering is real, suffering is true. You're not saying that. Pain is real. You're not saying that. So then, if you don't say the pain is real, then the cure to the pain is also not real. If you don't personalize the sickness, the suffering, if you don't own up to the suffering, then the cure to the suffering, which is a dharma, is also not personalized. It also doesn't really help you. It's also it's not relative. If you personalize, if you own up to the pain, then the cure to the pain is also owned up. Becomes your personal medicine. So in the Buddhist in Tibetan we use the term Dhamma or Menga. So Menga means formula, Dhamma means instruction. So it's similar to a instruction manual on let's say a cell phone or a tape recorder or any electronic equipment. So this manual is used, can be used, let's say a manual for a camera cannot be used for a tape recorder. They are totally different things, right? Even though both are helpful, good thing, but you cannot use the manual of a tape recorder, a camera for a tape recorder, and vice versa. Similarly, if you don't personalize, if you don't own up the suffering, if you don't acknowledge the fact that you are suffering, don't acknowledge that you are sick, then the cure to the suffering, the cure to the sickness also doesn't help you, because you have not owned up the negative side, so the positive one also does not apply to you. It's like giving, when the doctor asks you where your pain is, actually you have stomach pain, then when the doctor asks you what's your problem, you say I have headache. Then the doctor is going to give you migraine, this and that, and it's not going to do anything for your stomach, right? So like that is the meaning of truth of suffering. Suffering is true, suffering is real. It's in another way of saying it's I'm really in pain, I'm really suffering. So instead of saying truth of suffering, say suffering is real, I'm really suffering. When you say that, then actually it becomes personal, it becomes relatable, it connects with you. And then the method that we call the Dharma antidotes. So whatever antidotes the Dharma has taught us will actually apply for us to cure that particular sickness we have. So for sickness, for pain, we do have pain. That it's a matter of concealing. Who conceals it better. Who conceals it better. We all conceal it to a certain level. So for that reason, once we acknowledge the pain, the suffering, then the Dharma applies to you the most. Yeah. So the truth of suffering and the cause for the suffering. So once you identify the truth of suffering, the true suffering, then you can also find the cause for that suffering too. So the suffering, you have to go one by one. Whatever suffering that you are going to, we have lots of suffering, so we have to pick the suffering that haunts us the most, and then slowly we can take care of other sufferings as well. So if you just say suffering like, if you say something like, oh, I'm going to take care of my suffering, like just put it up in the air, then you're not applying, it becomes so abstract and generic. So there is no grasping, no holding, nothing. There is no hold of any sort. So therefore, it's important to hold responsible one suffering first, and then look for the cause for that particular suffering. And then once you identify that suffering, that particular suffering, then actually you can look up in the Dharma the antidote for that particular suffering. And then you apply that particular antidote to that particular pain. And slowly you can get rid of other pain as well, other sufferings as well. So mainly when we talk about suffering, we usually refer to, we call them, we have like three main culprits. We call them the three poisons. The anger or hatred or another word, what is that? No, attachment and ignorance is ignorance, attachment. The translation is like right there, But the anger, hatred, and then another word starts with A. I keep forgetting it. Aversion. Yes, aversion. So these three words actually, you have to use them interchangeably. For the Tibetan word, which is shedam, I think in Sanskrit is krodh. So it has the, for example, when we say, anyway, I'm not going to go into the linguistic part of it. Anyway, the thing is, it's not necessarily anger. Even though there is an anger aspect to it, because anger is something that happens reactionary. Anger is reactionary. And hatred is, of course, it's malaise. It's actually pre-planned. So Shedang has a hint of malice there. So therefore, it can be hatred, but not necessarily as strong as Shedang. Anyway, I'm going to the linguistic part anyway. So I'm not going to go like too deep into this. My point is, aversion is a proper more, because what happens is with so the three poisons, attachment, ignorance, and the other one. So attachment is you are totally attached, you are totally stuck with something, and the other thing, shedang or krodh, is total detachment, even stronger than detachment. You are totally avoiding that thing, trying to revert to that at all cost. So aversion is a better word, but most of the time we use the term hatred. So it's like, so aversion is not necessarily, the krodh is not necessarily hating someone per se. So when you have krodh or shedang in Tibetan towards someone, it's like you not necessarily hate that person so much that you want to get rid of that or something like that. For example, if I see someone that I don't have a very good relationship with, then if I know that person is coming and I don't come, or I avoid that person, that is also aversion. So it's not necessarily total hate. You don't hate that person per se, but you have a very difficult time accepting the fact that this person is here living and breathing in the same air as you. So that's aversion. So that's it's a very tricky emotion. So so aversion, hatred, anger, whatever commonly we say anger. Anyway, that emotion is there. So anyway, these are the three, we call them the three poisons. That is the main culprit, and from them stems many other negative emotion afflictions, like from it, and all of that actually stems from ignorance. And from ignorance, because we don't know the reason behind. A lot of things will happen like, oh, someone has been treating me badly, or like that person is avoiding my calls or not talking to me because, then you make up so many stories about that. And later you learn something actually happened, and then you are like, oh, that's the reason, okay, I have some blame to take for that as well, So what happens is you realize, what happens is out of ignorance, we make all the wrong decisions. So from ignorance comes all the other vices. That is the belief in Bodhidharma. And then from ignorance comes mostly attachment comes. Simple. I'm going to a very, just touching the surface and going very fast forwarding. So out of misinformation or out of ignorance, we get attached to a certain object. Think this is the most beautiful, most attractive, the best, whatever. Then someone tries to take this away from me, or trying to put this thing, put harm to this thing, that thing I'm so attached to. Then I get angry. Then I get offended, right? So from ignorance, out of my ignorance, I thought this is the best book available. Then I get so attached to it, and when then someone tries to take this book away, or even someone tries to copy this book, I'm so offended because, it has all the best, whatever information that I don't want anyone to copy this, right? Then I get offended, and then anger or attachment or aversion, whatever that comes in. So usually the three poisons stems from ignorance. From ignorance comes attachment. From attachment comes aversion, and from aversion, there are many other manifest like that. So those emotions manifest in physically and verbally. Verbally, you get angry, you say something bad, then situation turns worse from bad. Then, and if you raise hand, then worse than worse, right? So things like that. So out of negative thought, negative emotion, out of negative mental attribute, aspect, we tend to give in to negative action, negative thought, negative speech, etc. And then we accumulate negative karma, and then it just goes over and over and over and over again. So because of the suffering actually has a cause. That cause is our, so the suffering, as I said, suffering is the consequence. The cause for that consequence is actually the karma, right? Positive karma, negative karma. If you have positive karma, you enjoy. If you have negative karma, you suffer. Huh? So the karma is one of the two causes. Karma is one of the two causes for the suffering. The other cause, one is karma, and the other one is afflictive emotion, affliction. Basically, our negative thoughts. Negative thoughts. So negative thoughts, as I said right now, negative thoughts, mainly the three poisons, propels us to engage in negative action, which leads us back to suffering. And then we keep repeating this over and over and over again. So what Buddha said is, even though suffering is real, even though cause for the suffering is real, but this is not the ultimate reality. There is something beyond that, and if you know how to, let's say, twist it, or if you know how to tackle it, then you can actually turn the tables. So from suffering to joyfulness, you can actually turn the table. You can actually transform. Dharma can happen. So as I said, dharma in Sanskrit actually means to hold. So when there is suffering, you are in pain. When you are in pain, you cannot hold. Whenever we're going through some pain, something bad, we say, I'm feeling weak. So the person also, you can see from the composure, he becomes like his shoulders, whatever, becomes legs or whatever. So physically also, the person could not hold himself that much. Mentally also cannot hold. So unable to hold is a dharma, like the non-dharma in a way. So dharma means to be able to hold. So if you engage in negative action, if you keep doing all the wrong things, then you are unable to hold. So by engaging in the positive, you are able to uphold. So dharma, basically transformation. So Buddha said that even though all this suffering and its cause are real, it's not the ultimate truth. There's a different aspect to it. There's a different side to that same coin, and that is that is known as nirvana, or end of suffering, or we usually call cessation. Basically, no suffering at all. And how do we get to no suffering? Just like we get to suffering through its causes and conditions, we can get to no suffering also through cause and conditions. And that cause and condition is something that does not come automatically or reactionary. We have to nurture it, we have to cultivate it. And cultivation of that that cause and condition for cessation of suffering is known as engaging in the path of Dharma. Yeah. So by engaging in the path, you will be able to end suffering entirely. Basically, every consequence has a cause, and when you cut the cause, when you cut the root, then the sapling will start to die. When you cut the root, when you remove the root, when you cut the root, the sapling will start to the sapling will begin to die, begin to end. So therefore, Buddha taught that's the truth of end to suffering, which is known as nirvana, and then the path to the nirvana. So the path to nirvana is normally known as the Noble Eightfold Path. It's a very simple Buddhist, simple way of explaining the path is the Noble Eightfold Path. So to right living, right speech, right mindset, right action, right livelihood, etc., etc., then you can actually, this is a very simple version of the path. But the more advanced version, of course, you have to do a lot of meditation. Yeah. And then, so coming to meditation, which is we are supposed to talk tonight. So meditation, basically, of course, you're familiar, anyways. Basically, it means to familiarize yourself. So what we actually do with meditation, the purpose of meditation, let's call it that way. So the purpose of meditation is to consolidate all aspect of the mind. So basically, to consolidate the power of the mind, if you like, the potential of the mind, the aspect of the mind. So basically, to make your mind one. That is the purpose of meditation. So we meditate on Bodhicitta, we meditate on impermanence, this and that. What we're trying to achieve here is to make our mind strong, strengthen the mind, and by consolidating all its power. So the meditation in the sutras is likened to a waterfall. So when the water is falling from a high peak, I don't know what you call it, cliff, and then when it falls to the bottom, there is so much force there because all the power, the energy has been consolidated within. So if you are sitting under a waterfall that is very high, then you can get injured because it's so strong. Then when it happens for a long time, it actually cuts through rocks, and then that's why you have the caverns and all these things. Yeah. So therefore, even though something as smooth and slippery or slithering as water, something fluid, can also penetrate and cut through all these hard rocks. So, because when it consolidates its power, so similarly, even though mind itself has no form of its own, no physical manifestation of its own. Mind does not have a physical manifestation, but once you consolidate the power of the mind and point it at a certain thing, when you train yourself to do that, then it can actually do, you can say miraculous thing if you like. One example, it's like the magnifying glass. When you point it at a certain, with a magnifying glass, you point the sun, when you consolidate the power of the solar power to a certain point with the magnifying glass, when the power of the sun is not harnessed, when it's just lying around, it's just hot. But when you pinpoint it at a certain object with a magnifying glass, then it gets magnified 100 times, 10 times, whatever, and then it burns through a lot of things, right? So like that, the mind can actually penetrate through, even though it does not have a physical nature or manifestation of its own, it can, by consolidating the power of the mind, it can have, it can impact, it can affect, even though the mind on its own, by nature, on its own, the mind has no physical aspect. By harnessing the power of the mind and solidifying it in one point, that mind can actually affect the physical world. So that's where a lot of time, maybe it's not the right time, but anyway, you can use meditative power to take care of certain internal malfunctions, internal imbalances. If you train yourself in a proper way, even though something is internally wrong, physically wrong, you can actually use your mental power to heal those things. It's not that whenever we don't understand the cause behind, we just use the term miraculous. But then once you understand, it seems so easy and this and that, right? Anyway, so that's the thing. So I think maybe open up for Q&A is better. Yeah. So I think I stop here. Just talk about the benefits of meditation. We didn't really talk about meditation that much, but I will hope to talk about that tomorrow because we have 2 sessions tomorrow afternoon. So maybe we can talk in more detail Then, yes. So maybe some Q&As. Yes.
Questions?
So I said I will talk about karma, the four noble truths, and then I will talk about compassion, bodhicitta. So I haven't talked about that. So I will talk about this bodhicitta very briefly. Then you can ask some questions. Yeah, you can. So in that time you can think of some questions. Yes. So bodhicitta is basically the mindset to become Buddha, to be enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. So where does this thought come from? All of a sudden, like I'm dealing with my own suffering, all this thing, and all of a sudden this desire to become a Buddha, all this thing. How does all this thing happen? And the bodhicitta is not about becoming a Buddha for my own sake, for selfish reason. It's actually very selfless mindset to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So why do we need to? So if you in the Mahayana Buddhist teaching, or in the Vajrayana Buddhist teaching, which is Mahayana with Tantra, Buddhist Tantra, that's Vajrayana. So in Mahayana as well as Vajrayana Buddhism, then bodhicitta is the main thing. Even though in Vajrayana you see a lot of different deities, this and that, but those are all manifestation. So in order to manifest, you have to have something, essentially, that manifests outwardly, right? So without the bodhicitta, and of course the understanding of emptiness, then there is nothing to manifest out. It's like a projector without the movie, a roll. So you have a beautiful projector, but then there's no roll, no cinema to play, like that. Anyway, so bodhicitta, the importance of bodhicitta is because, so bodhicitta, to make it simple to understand, very simple to understand also, okay? If you understand, if you have familiarized yourself, like we did on the Four Noble Truths, and then we understand, acknowledge the fact that I am suffering. My suffering is real. When you find that out, when you acknowledge that, when you accept that you are suffering, when you are able to acknowledge that, then when you find out that you are suffering, then you will never stay still. You will go crazy, right? How to get rid of that suffering, how to get out. Shall I do some prostration? Shall I do some charity? Shall I go to India to visit the holy place? I don't know, whatever something you are suffering, then to atone the negative karma, you will do something for that. It basically make you restless. Restless in a good way. Because you know you are suffering. So once you know you are suffering and you feel you are totally fed up with the world that you are living in. Basically, you want to renounce the world that you live. Renounce does not mean you just run away and escape, right? So basically, when you feel renunciation, so when you feel the pain yourself, when you know your suffering is real, then renunciation will come. You want to renounce this world. Renounce this world does not mean you want to give up everything. Renounce this world means you want to go beyond. So when renunciation comes, renunciation is directed towards myself. Bodhicitta is directed towards others. So once you understand suffering, the truth of suffering, then you will also, after some study, you can actually understand renunciation. And once you understand renunciation, once you get hold of renunciation, you can also get hold of bodhicitta. Because bodhicitta and renunciation are two sides of one coin. So there is a head on the one side, there's a tail on the other side. So once you know that you are suffering and you can't stand yourself suffering. There's no way I'm gonna sit peacefully with all this suffering going on, all this mess going on in my life. I must do something for myself. If you see that within yourself, then you will also be able to see, if you use a little bit of your wit, you can see that everybody else is also suffering as you do. So if you are that much worried for one person, me, then how can you stand still, sit still, when everybody else is suffering like that? So that is Bodhicitta. You see the suffering of other sentient beings, you are so much impacted by that, which propels you to do something about their pain as well. This is essentially what mothers do all the time for their children. And that's why for Bodhicitta, we use the analogy of mother sentient being, that's what we say. Because mothers' love for their children is unconditional, and the mother strives to work for the benefit, if you like, of their children without seeking any reward. And so that is why the Bodhicitta is likened to a mother's love for her only child. Supposedly, a mother has only one enduring child. So similarly, that is what Bodhicitta is like. So the more love you have for yourself, then if you use your wit a little bit, if you shine, instead of shining inward, if you shine it outwardly, you can see all the other people suffering as you do, and then you will not be able to bear the fact of leaving them aside. And that's when Bodhicitta arises naturally. So this is a very brief intro on Bodhicitta. Maybe next time a little more. Okay, now question.
Good evening. Thank you for the teachings, Rinpoche. So when I am sitting here and I listen to the teachings, I'm like, it doesn't sound so difficult. But then in real life, it's very difficult. And once you have already reacted with an afflicted emotion, like once you already did it, what can you do?
Yep, that's a very good question. It's something related to all of us. Yeah, that's true. It's harder. It's easier said than done. To practice is the most difficult. That's true. So a lot of times, this is the thing. We talk about awareness a lot. So we talk about mindfulness practice, this and that. So a lot of time people think like mindfulness practice is another practice to do. Like you have wushu training, you have like gym training, you have swimming training. Like many different kind of skill sets. And then mindfulness is sort of a meditation that you do one of those things. But actually mindfulness does not necessarily mean that. Of course, you first have to train in mindfulness, but mindfulness actually make yourself more aware at all times. So mindfulness is not a practice that you do externally, but it's something to internalize so that you are always aware at all times. You are aware at all times. So what that will happen is make sure that you don't react in a certain way, like in a negative way, in an unfortunate incident. But if you happen to do so, if you lose your mindfulness for a certain period, and then you get distracted, and your awareness or mindfulness is not there, and therefore you react in a way that you will later feel embarrassed or not good about, then having mindfulness practice in general will actually help you to remember right after, that I have made a mistake. and then immediately come back to immediately repair whatever situation that you have created, scenario that you have created. So without ego, with no ego. Basically what happens is we react in a certain way, then we get embarrassed, but then we also have our ego, and so we don't apologize, or I mean we say sorry like from our mouth, but deep down we don't really apologize, and like deep down accept that. So having mindfulness practice, so not talking about mindfulness as a meditation per se, but being mindful of everything around you, that actually help us to be on guard right after. So this is very much spoken in a book known as Master Shantideva. You might have heard of him. He's an 8th century master. In his book, The Way of the Bodhisattva, I think that's chapter 5. So in the book he said, he is basically talking about a term called conscientiousness. Basically it means to be conscious at all times, or to be mindful at all times. So conscientiousness is a fancy term for mindfulness. So he's talking about the benefits of the qualities of conscientiousness or mindfulness. So he said, if you are in a battle, and if you're in that battle, your enemy catches you off guard, and you happen to throw your sword out, your sword falls out from your hand, what will you do? Of course, you are in a battlefield, your life is in danger. You will immediately pick up the sword and then get up and fight, continue to fight. So similarly, be on guard just as that. So basically he's talking about be on guard means to be mindful. So mindfulness practice is, we practice mindfulness as a meditation. That is one thing. This is for the training purpose. But don't put mindfulness as another skill set and put it aside. But bring mindfulness to our everyday life. So basically be aware. Bring awareness to what you talk, what you think, what you do, etc. This will help you avoid such scenario. And the moment you find out yourself in such a scenario, then you will immediately rectify the mistake you have done. So your actual question is, how do you rectify that, right? So the way to rectify that, it's a negative action, usually we have many different forms of, like if you go for a strictly Buddhist kind of practices, then we rectify that by doing prostration, by doing confession, prostration is one thing, confession is another thing, making mandala offerings, and so these are the things. So basically there's something called using the 4 powers of confession. The 4 powers is by using the 4 power of confession, you can actually rectify the mistake that you have committed. The 4 powers is the power of support, or the triple gem, the Buddhas, one, and the second is to regret. Yes, you have to totally regret what you have done. In order to regret, you have to accept that it is wrong, right? So you accept it's wrong, then you regret, then you renounce it. So regret is one thing, and after that you make sure that you won't repeat anything of that nature. That's the third one. Regret, then renounce, and then what the last one is, basically to do the opposite of what the mistake that you have committed. So for example, let's say just you have given to a lie, you have lied to someone, then the opposite of that would be telling the truth, right? Just spreading the truth. So the first thing, you have told a lie, then you later regret about that, right? You confess to the triple gem, the first one, support or the refuge. The second is regret. You totally regret from your heart, repent from your heart that this is a wrong thing to lie. The third is to renounce, that you will no longer engage in such a activity like lying. And the fourth one is to commit yourself to the opposite. Basically applying, we call this applying the antidote. So do the opposite of what you have just done mistakenly. So you have your crime is to lie, so now you have to tell the truth, like that. Yes.
Rinpoche, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Right. So in Buddhism, we often mention Mother Sentient Being, where Mother has the greatest love for the children. And so what is your advice for those who are being abandoned at childhood by their mother? And in this analogy, like Mother Sentient may not be very, like, they may not take it easily when we share this with them. From a Buddhist point of view, what would you advise to them?
Yeah. A lot of time people who were abandoned by, in such cases, a lot of people with such experience usually tend to be a little bit tend to be indifferent to others' emotion in general, and also to, of course, so mother and a parent is no thing, right? So you in the training, in order to train bodhicitta, in order to train compassion, actually Buddha spoke, and Buddha and Buddha's follower actually spoke of two types of training. One is known as the 7-step or the 7 cause and effect. 7-step, basically it's called the 7-step training to cultivate bodhicitta, and this has to do with mother sentient beings like that. Another thing is known as exchanging oneself with others. So this one has nothing to do with parent, nothing to do with your creator, nothing to do with who made you this and that. It basically, and what happens is, because a lot of people who were abandoned and this and that, because they have had such an experience, so they usually tend to be less emotional, and as of such, they tend to be more logical in a sense, trying to be rational as possible, because emotion is something that they detest, so they tend to be more logical. And in this scenario, the exchanging oneself with other, you actually don't use emotion. Some people do, but you actually don't have to use emotion at all. You actually use logic to train in bodhicitta. So exchanging oneself with other basically means, my goodness with your badness, right? So whatever good I have, I give to you. Whatever bad that is. So for that, actually, there is a lengthy training. But the most important thing is you accept the fact. What you do is that, just like you don't like suffering, others don't like suffering too. You don't like suffering, they don't like suffering. Same. You just one, others innumerable. So from a purely logical point of view, will you abandon the multitude for the sake of the singular? So that is the logic used to train in the bodhicitta, with the exchange with self and others. So just like I suffer, others suffer too. And if I don't want to suffer, they don't want to suffer. So for that reason, if I let others suffer for my sake, then I'm being selfish. And for that reason, if you talk in numbers, because rationality, right? Me is just one, others is innumerable. So when you weigh the numbers, then it's 1 to infinity. So therefore, how can I ignore the infinity for the sake of one? So by using sheer logic, you can actually practice bodhicitta. And then this true training, the 7-step, the 7-point cause and effect, and exchanging one and others. So 7-point step is known as for those who are emotional. The exchanging oneself with others is known as the bodhicitta training for the intellectuals, the rationals, like that. Yeah, so that is one. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So last year, April, I went to Nepal to trek the Annapurna 2 days now. You gotta go, you will go up. But the true suffering is after the base camp, I went down.
Yeah.
So my left toe was numb and it's so painful. So it's so painful till I try to practice divert the pain. So it works for a while to the lunch area. So the pain, so I try to walk with the walking stick with a harder sound. Pam, pam, pam. So I divert the pain and focus on the sound. And it works for me.
Yeah.
So my friend, I said, go outside. The power is like, for the 10 minutes when I reached the lunch area, I told my friend about this experience. Wow. So I said, after the lunch, I'm going to try that again.
Yeah.
But after the lunch, the pain is true. It's so true, no matter how I divert, the pain is so true.
Yeah.
So my question is it through meditation or what practice that I can longer the diversion of the pain? Because it's just a 10 minutes, but after that.
Certainly meditation, because I told you, yes, certainly we talk about the meditation means to solidify the mind. So what happens is, basically solidifying means to focus as well, right? So, I mean, solidify for external object, it means to put everything together. For the mind, to solidify means put its focus or efforts together. That's the mean, to solidify the mind. So when you are able to solidify the mind, basically if you meditate often, especially in a single-pointed meditation, then you can actually extend the focus of the mind. So what happens is when you are doing the sound thing, your mind is you are staying distracted. Actually, distraction is a concentration. When you are distracted, you are actually concentrated to that thing. Yeah. You are distracted from, if you're listening to the noise outside, you are distracted from my talk, but you are concentrated on the sound outside of the car honking or whatever, right? So all distractions are a form of concentration of some kind. So therefore, if you train yourself in the concentrated meditation, then you can actually, when you can distract your mind self, you can distract your mind from one set of concentrated focal point to another and stay there longer. Yes, you can do that. Yeah, but it could be also the case of just an adrenaline rush, like because when you are doing it, bashing it, there is so much adrenaline, right? Yes, but yeah, yes, you can extend that with meditation. Yes.
Rinpoche, I have a question.
Yes, Pandit, yeah.
Just now you mentioned suffering is true, and you mentioned that it's due to two. One is afflictive emotion, and the other one is the karma.
Yes.
Are they mutually exclusive?
Not really. I mean, to us, yes, but at a certain level, it doesn't have to be. Yeah. Like when you are, we are familiar, we are familiar with the word term arahat, right? So in the arahat, Dajoba, for destroyer, enemy destroyer. So when we reach the form of this morning, Jimala and we are talking about this, right? Yesterday or this morning, whatever. Yeah, last evening, right, when you dropped me off the hotel. So the two types of Dachoba are the Arahat. So Hakje Dachoba and Hakme Dachoba. Hakje means one with residue. Hakme means without residue. Residue here means the body, one with the body and without the body. So this body is a residue of our karmic accumulation of the past. So as long as we have this karmic body, then we will tend to suffer, even though we are free from afflictive emotion itself. So for that reason, especially in the Theravadin presentation, Then also in the Mahayana presentation also, in Theravadan presentation, Buddha Shakyamuni is a Buddha, is an Arhat with residue, okay? In the with a body, it means literally Hagje. Pombo means body, Hagje means body, residual body, okay? So in the Theravada tradition presentation, the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, when he was alive, after attaining enlightenment, he was actually an Arhat with a residual body. So for that reason, there was a story of Buddha being pricked by a thorn in his certain, and then what is his Devadatta? Devadatta threw some stone and hit somewhere of his leg or whatever, and he got injured and like that. So the explanation for that from the Theravada presentation is that Buddha is actually, he's an Arhat, he's a Buddha, he's an Arhat, but he's an Arhat with a residual body. So basically, even though he cleared off his karmic debt, no negative emotion left, but he still has his residual body. That body could still endure pain. That has to go through pain like that. So when he actually passes into the so-called nirvana, so there's only one nirvana in that case in the Theravada presentation, but in the Mahayana presentation, when you got into Arhat, you're already in nirvana. So nirvana with and without residual body, or Arhat with or without residual body, then the same meaning. So anyway, so from the Theravada presentation, when the Buddha actually dies or passes away, that's when he goes into true nirvana in the Theravada. But in Mahayana, he is nirvana way before, right? Anyway, so the Theravada, according to Theravada study presentation, when he dies, then he is into nirvana. That's why we usually say, when someone dies, some holy Rinpoche, Lama, whatever they say, parinirvana, this and this, right? So nirvana, that nirvana, according to Theravada, is the nirvana without residual body. Means he now lives his karmic body. So therefore, from now onwards, only his spirit remain, or his consciousness remain, the enlightened spirit remain. So no more, the body will no longer suffer. So he may come in the body of a Manjushri or a Tara or whatever celestial body, but it will no longer be contaminated body, will no longer suffer like that. So back to the point, the point is that when you reach Arhat with residual body and without residual body, when you reach Arhathood, there is no afflictive emotion at all. Any Arhat, with residual, without residual, doesn't matter. When you reach Arhat, no afflictive emotion at all. No anger, no hatred, nothing. But still, you would have to suffer pain because the residual body is there. We just don't accept, in the Mahayana teaching, we don't accept that Buddha is a, Arhat with a residual body. We do accept that Arhats in general, Arhats with residual body, they have to go through suffering. So the examples would be like Angulimala, the one who killed 999 people to avenge this and that. And there are many other, because Angulimala, later he regretted and became an Arhat, and but then he was beaten to death, Angulimala. So the question is, he's an Arhat, how can he be beaten to death? So because Angulimala is an Arhat with a residual body. So therefore, even though internally he has no afflictive emotion at all, but externally or physically, he was still carrying the body that was flaunted by his karmic consequences. So therefore, so it's not mutually exclusive. One can have one and not the other. But for most of us, it's kind of like, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. You have, okay, sure. And the last question then.
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually quite new, and I think it would be a very basic question. I understand that there's a ignorance and also attachment. Does it relate back to karma? And can you give us a practical example of how we explain this relationship?
Relationship between karma and
How does it actually, does it start with
Okay.
ignorance and
Yes.
followed by attachment and
Yes.
cause karma? Is
Right.
it how you looked at it?
Yeah. So before I start, maybe I will just, you said you are new to this, so I will refer you to something called 12th link of dependent origination. Okay, 12th link of dependent origination. So if you refer to that, then you will know what starts what, and then how one comes to this and that. So simply put, so just to come back to your question, simply put, so the 12 links of dependent origination is basically, the first one is actually ignorance, the first of the 12 links. So out of ignorance, because ignorance is darkness, so in the darkness, we take a step forward. So when we take a step forward in darkness, we actually stumble, right? So it is said the first of the 12 link of dependent origination or dependent arising. What it means is all these 12 points are linked to each other, dependent upon each other. So therefore, it's called 12 links of dependent origination. Okay. So the first one is ignorance. So because of ignorance, we stumble upon, and then we create a karma. And because of the karma, a consciousness starts to pop up. So here, consciousness actually does not mean like the central consciousness, this and that. It's more likely because when you first ignorance. So in this light, you can say ignorance. When you are ignorant of something, you're not conscious of something, right? So out of ignorance, that means more likely subconsciously, right? Just making it easy for you to understand. Subconsciously, you commit an action, and that action actually brings forth a result or a consequence, and that consequence actually brings forth a conscious implication. So first ignorance, then karma, then consciousness, then you become conscious of what is going on, what happened, and then you end up doing, following these things like that. So yes, so to make it simple to understand, ignorance is the root. From ignorance comes karma, and from karma comes consciousness. Or in that understanding, you can also say consciousness, because we as someone with a consciousness is constituted as a being, sentient being. So for in that regard, when you out of ignorance, when you make an action, when you take an action, then you actually come into being like that. So first you make subconsciously you take a step, and that step actually makes you to create a consequence, which is the karma, and then that consequence or that karma actually leads you to bring forth life, to bring life forth, like that. So I would refer you to take a look at the 12 links of dependent origination, then you will find out. So again, to make it easier for you to understand, there is no such thing as the very first ultimate karma or ignorance like that. So basically in Buddhism, there is no inception. So when we talk about everything began from ignorance, we are talking about our individual beginning. Individually, there is a beginning. But if you talk about at large, for humanity, or let's say for all sentient beings or this and that, there is no beginning here. You cannot pinpoint and say this is the beginning of evolution or this and that. There's no such thing. You can say there's the beginning of me, there's the beginning of you, this and that, but not of all the entirety of humanity or sentient beings. There's no such thing as beginning. So basically there's no inception. Time is always understood in Buddhism as beginningless. So it's always understood as a cycle, meaning no beginning. So time is never linear, no A to Z. It's always a circle. So therefore there is no beginning of the world. There is a beginning of this world, but there's no such thing as beginning of the world as such. So yes, so a little bit makes some sense? Yeah, okay. Okay, I appreciate it. Rejoice. Is there you have a dedication prayer? I will just say a short dedication, yeah? Which page do you have?
Page 21.
21, yeah? Please refer to page 21 for the, oh yes, for the dedication. Yeah, page 21, the first paragraph. Yeah. In order to acquaint my mind with the path, and also to benefit other fortunate beings, I have herein explained in simple terms the complete path that pleases the Buddhas. I pray that by the power of this virtue, all sentient beings are never separated from the sublime and noble path. The Venerable Guru prayed in this manner. I, the seeker of liberation, will do likewise. Then the teachings of the Anapurna may be such as Bodhicitta or Sukhavati, where Venerable Samtaka, my teacher, resides. May that be the place where others and I are born as his very first disciples. Initially, strive to gain vast learning. In the middle, all the teachings are reflected as fifth instructions. In the end, practice diligently day and night, dedicate all virtues to the proliferation of the Dharma. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for giving your first teaching in Tibetan Buddhist Center. It's Rinpoche's first time to give a teaching in our center.